Yo, Eazy.
What's up, guys? My name is Evan Duval. This is Eazy Does It. Thank you for joining us. What is up, y'all? How are we doing tonight? Let's go internal. Let's drop in, all right? This is an amazing opportunity for us to meet my friend here, Khalil Rafati. Let's give him a good round of applause. Welcome. My name is Evan Duval. This is the Eazy Does It podcast. We're here at Aviator Nation in motherfucking Austin, Texas, y'all. Give it up. Well, I think I'll let Khalil do his introduction, and I think it all starts in Ohio.
Yeah, it all started in Ohio. Hi, everybody. I'm Khalil Rafati, and I did not know this many people were going to be here.
Yeah.
This is cool. Never been nervous before a podcast before, but yeah, little.
Get used to it.
Yeah.
Settle in.
I'll shake off the nervous vibes in a moment. So yeah, I was born in Toledo, Ohio, and I'm in Austin, Texas. My God.
Come a long way.
I've come a long way. So I'm not sure where to start, but I might as well start with stuff that I think is necessary and we need to get out of the way. And I am going to paraphrase a lot because I know we have a limited amount of time. So I just want to kind of set the foundation of who I am and where I came from. So my mother immigrated from Poland. She was a kid during the war. She suffered all kinds of horrible shit, was given up by her mom, left on a doorstep to two sisters, and the two sisters then, along with my mom, were marched off through Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, all the way up to Siberia, and she was placed into a slave labor camp as a child. There was about 1.7 million Poles that happened with. 2/3 of them died. My mother was one of the children that survived. She contracted TB. After the war, she went into a sanitarium and stayed in Poland, was married, had a kid, horrible marriage, and eventually came to the United States to find her mother. My father was born in Palestine, pre-Israel Palestine. He was 12 years old when there was some gunfire, some explosions happening, so him and his family ran up into the hills and they stayed up there for 3 days, and when they came back down, they were told that was no longer their home and that was no longer their land. So my father became a refugee in the land that he was born in, and he left when he was 19. He was married when he was 19. He had 3 kids. He left to Germany to go make some money. He came back thinking he was going to be the hero. What he didn't know is while he was gone, they didn't know he was coming back. So his wife had married his brother and had a kid with her. And my dad broke, and my dad never really recovered from that. His heart turned black. So he eventually made it to Orange, Texas, which I don't even know where that is, but that's where my dad first showed up. And my dad had kids in the Middle East. My dad had some kids somewhere around here. I've got brothers and sisters that are half siblings all over the world, in Canada and Ramallah and Jordan. One sister in Louisiana that he doesn't acknowledge. So when they got together, it was a recipe for disaster. They both were bringing all of their dysfunction and their pain with them. Now I'm glad they did, because they had me, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. But what my mother endured, the beatings, the violence, the cheating, what I endured as a child, the neglect, the violence, the incest, broke me in a way that I almost didn't recover from, and in some ways I still am recovering from. So, and the reason I start with that is because so many times people will say to me like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you were a junkie. I can't believe you shot up. Like, I'm scared of needles," which always blows my mind because weren't we all? I mean, weren't we all scared of needles as kids? But sooner or later, when you're a drug addict, you begin to run out of money, and you have to find ways where you can deliver enough drugs into your system so you're no longer sick. So, Ohio, horrible childhood. In my early teens, I started getting in a lot of trouble. I was arrested 3 times before I was 16. And by the time I was 19, I had been held back twice, and I dropped out. So I got kicked out of a bunch of schools, got held back a couple times, and then eventually just dropped out because I couldn't. I was 19 years old, and I was still in high school. It was embarrassing. Kind of fucked for life. I mean, started getting in a lot of trouble. I left Ohio, went to California to get out of trouble. I went to California. I got out of trouble for a period of time and did pretty good because of my ethnic background. I'm a hard worker. I'm industrious. I knew how to hustle. And then I found more trouble and more trouble and more trouble. So things got worse and worse, and the heavier drugs I did, the more I became to come unglued. And eventually, when I got into shooting heroin and shooting cocaine and smoking crack, I began to lose my mind. And a lot of that stuff that I had been suppressing for decades began to rise to the surface. You know, I was having panic attacks and a lot of anxiety from 12 years old to 19 years old. Kind of went away until I was in my mid-20s, staying up for days at a time, not eating, and putting copious amounts of cocaine, heroin, or methamphetamines into my veins triggered a psychosis that is just unimaginable. And I lost my fucking mind. I lost everything. I became homeless. I was a high school dropout. I was living under a bridge, and by the grace of God, through a very strange set of circumstances, I was able to raise my hand and surrender and join the winning team, and that was in 2003. And I got clean and sober, and at 33 years old, had to learn how to chop wood and carry water and join the human race. And it was tough. And I got to tell you, for any of you guys that are in your 20s and 30s and you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know. I haven't found my path yet. Or, you know, all my friends graduated from college already. And, you know, what is it that I'm going to do? I was walking dogs and washing cars, and I was a manny for these 2 boys when I was 34 years old. And the only job I could get was in a rehab. So things were pretty grim. And things are pretty fucking amazing now. And
absolutely,
yeah. And
now we're here.
And now we're here. Yeah. Do you want to jump in with anything?
I would love to. Yeah, I think there's so much in there to unpack. And you know, I started hearing this story through friends who knew Khalil, and I actually stopped by his store. So he's the owner of Sunlife Organics. Most of y'all have probably heard of that brand, if not visited their store. But I was on a bike ride, and I was cruising by, and was enjoying an acai bowl outside. And Khalil walked up and introduced himself, not as the owner of the place, but just to talk. And he started telling me about the $1 billion bowl and how good it was. And this is an acai bowl that's, I think, $35.
Yeah.
It was a little bit out of my price range. But he came back out after we were talking just innocently, and he handed me a gift card and said, hey, man, I shouldn't be talking about how good that $1 billion bowl is if I'm the owner. And, you know, he didn't expect anything out of it. And that was just such a kind gesture. That day, I actually spoke with a friend, and she asked me what my favorite part of that day was. And I told her about it. And she said, do you know who that was? And I said, no, I don't. And she said a little bit about your story, paraphrasing, and told me that I should have you on the podcast. So at the time, I didn't know exactly how to do that outreach, but I knew that if it was meant to be, it would happen.
Yeah.
And my friend Felix, who we've been working together, actually crossed paths with him. And I was trying to find a guest for this show about a week and a half ago. And I sent Felix a text and I said, hey man, I want to interview the owner of Sunlife Organics. How can we make that happen? He calls me and he says, dude, do you know who I met yesterday? Out of everyone in Austin, Texas. And there's so many examples of how that's happening when we are looking for it, right? And when we open our hearts, when we open our minds, this world is abundant. Y'all are all here for a reason. We all have stories. And by taking a moment, sitting, pausing, and giving each other our attention and truly listening to what shapes us, what shapes our perspectives, being honest about our traumas or, our tendencies, what is right, what is wrong. Everyone is so different. But when we take a moment and we truly listen to one another, then we do find inspiration. And we are motivated, and that is the purpose of tonight. And so moving back, just this starts with a kid, man, that was born into a situation that wasn't ideal. It wasn't perfect. It was very dark. And that's just, there's so much to say in that. It's you never truly know what someone has been through. And by taking the time to listen to that, we all discover that, there's usually more to the story. And if we can't necessarily relate, which we usually can, then we can find inspiration in that, and it can open our minds to being more accepting to who people are, how they're showing up, and to overcome all of that in such a positive way and do what you have done as a businessman, as a human being that is committed to service. I want to give one huge round of applause. Let's go.
Thank you. Well, I love what you said about that, and I love what you said about me, and I thank you. But I want everyone to understand that, look, having immigrant parents, although I feel like I'm kind of unique when I was saying that, and then of course I look over and I see Rod and his brother, and I realize I'm not that unique. Whether it's having immigrant parents, or whether it's being molested, or whether it's watching your mother get the life beat out of her, it doesn't have to be that extreme. Pain is pain, right? Some of the most painful experiences of my life had very little to do with the violence or with the sexual abuse. Some of the most painful experiences of my life were when a teacher told me that I was stupid or that I was an idiot and made me go sit in the corner and put on a dunce hat. And I know a lot of you guys are probably too young to even know what that means, but in Catholic Jesuit schools in Ohio in the 70s and the 80s, they still made kids wear dunce hats. They still paddled kids. The paddling I didn't give a shit about, because no one was going to hit me as hard as my dad was, right? But being told that I was stupid and having to sit in the corner, you got to remember something. We have 10,000 generations whispering in our ear to be popular. We have 10,000 generations whispering in our ear to have abundance and prosperity and safety, right? We have 10,000 generations whispering in our ear to procreate. And those are God-given instincts. And we have those instincts when we're growing up. And my pain is no greater than your pain. Mine's maybe a little bit more extreme, right? Maybe a little bit more graphic, but pain is pain. And so we get all these ouchies and we get all these wounds, and we get, a lot of us had our parents impregnate us with their fears and with their isms and with their dysfunction. And then we're carrying that inside of us. But at the same time, we've got that message to, you better become popular. You better be attractive to, a mate. I was going to say the opposite sex, but that's not true anymore. But you better be, attractive to a mate. There's intense pressure on us as kids growing up in our social circles. And let's be honest.
Expectations.
Yeah. Kids are fucking brutal. So when I was like 11 or 12 years old, I remember this kid that I used to hang out with named Shannon Weimerskirch. I really liked him. His mom was like English or something. They were weird. They didn't really fit in Ohio. And I really liked him, and I really liked his sister, and I really liked his older sister, and I hung out with them a lot. I also like going over to their house because there was food there and there was kind of like a family vibe. And I remember one day, Shannon's mom just pulled me aside and she said, "You can't hang out here anymore. You can't hang out with my son. You don't take this the wrong way, but I can't have you hanging out with my son anymore." And she didn't really give me an explanation, but she didn't need to. What she meant was that I was dirty and I was bad and that I needed to go away. And that reinforced those horrible feelings that I had when I was being molested as a child. And so it sort of became this self-fulfilling prophecy. Got the teachers telling me that I'm a piece of shit, or not a piece of shit, but you know what I mean. My teachers are telling me that I'm bad and I'm no good, and I had horrible grades. I was always the last kid to get picked for sports. Always. I'm not an athletic guy. Some of you guys here work out with me, and you can attest to that. I'm not an athletic guy. I'm strong. I'm definitely strong, but I can't catch. I was never good at sports. And so again, when it came time to pick the teams, did you guys go through that, or did I come from a different team?
Anyone?
Came time to pick teams, and there'd be like the 5 or 6 guys that always got picked first, and then there was the 2 or 3 guys that nobody wanted on their team. Like, I was that guy. So it fucking hurt. And all that stuff stacked together, then we carry that with us into adulthood. And look, if you're anything like me, and especially if you're a man, we push that shit down. We push it down deep inside. I think that's one of the main reasons why men cheat more than women, because men suppress their emotions so much and they're terrified and they're scared of being abandoned. And women are much more open and they talk about their feelings. And it's getting better now, but
yeah,
man,
it's beginning to change.
It's
important that we are aware of the narrative that's being set for all of us, and there's so much out there. We're impressed by so much, and when we take a moment to really ask ourselves how our experiences are shaping us, hopefully we have awareness, or we're doing the work in order to gain awareness of how our experiences have shaped us. The next thing that we need to do is ask ourselves what we are going to do with those experiences. Everyone has pain. Everyone has trauma. If we tell ourselves these, very common perspectives of that, nobody will understand, or, I'm just alone in this world, or why me? It's not getting us anywhere. We have to open up in some capacity. We can't keep packing things down. It's not sustainable. You start hurting other people. You start hurting your own life path and self-destructing. We all have seen examples of that. And, moving forward, it's just so important that we ask ourselves, what can we do now? Right? Okay, these things in my past may have happened to me. Now I'm aware of them. This is how it shapes me day to day. What can I do now to show up better or differently? And we have to ask ourselves those questions every day. But the potential of our pain and how deep it goes, I believe in polarity. I truly do. I think that our experience, no matter how dark, can be just as light, right? If we flip that switch.
Yeah.
If we become aware of what is wrong with whatever's going in between our ears.
Yeah. I was told that when I was strung out, and it was before I got really, really bad, but I was told by this guy named Rafi, and he was a Tai Chi teacher, and he taught all of the head rabbis of the Kabbalah, and he was telling me that I needed to resist the darkness and I needed to go towards the light. I needed to try to bring more light in, and I needed to go away from the darkness and not fall to that temptation. And he said something that hooked me. He said, because you've fallen so hard, because you are in so much darkness, you can rise so high. For as low as you've fallen, you can rise equally as high. So it's a gift. What you went through is a gift. Another way of framing that is, if you're a solid vessel, the light of God can't get in. But when you're broken, the light of God can get in. And I'm sure all of us have had those experiences where that guy left us or that girl left us, and we were going to fucking die. We were a puddle on the floor, and we were in a fetal position, and life was never going to be okay again. We lost that job, and we were fucked, and we were never going to be. I remember being 35 years old. I finally got a fucking job, like a real job. Like, I had medical insurance, I had dental insurance, and I had this cool boss that I looked up to. And I mean, it was at a rehab. I wasn't like curing cancer or anything like that. I was babysitting rich drug addicts in Malibu, but it was a fucking job, and I was stoked to have it. And I was making like $14 an hour. And I'll never forget, I was taking big chances. I wanted to make more money. Because I wanted to eventually be able to take care of my mom, and I wanted to have some good stuff in my life. I was still homeless at that point. I was crashing at my sponsor's house, so I was still homeless, and I couldn't afford an apartment. So I was taking these big risks, and it didn't work. I fucked up. I made some big mistakes. And I got fired. And my boss didn't just fire me. He like cleared his desk at me and screamed at me, and he fired me. And I'll never forget driving off that property and getting up towards the top of the property. I'm 35 years old, convicted felon, high school dropout, can't spell, can't type, still looked pretty bang up, couple years sober, right? What the fuck was I going to do? What was I going to do? At that time, 35 seemed ancient. I really felt like life had passed me by and I was fucked. I remember going down to this little smoothie shop and sitting at the counter, and this kid Miguel asking me like, "You okay?" And I'm like, head in hands. I'm like, "No." I told him what happened. He's like, "What are you gonna do?" And I'm like, "I have no idea." I got something called Cobra, so my insurance was going to extend for 6 months, but beyond that, I was fucked. I had no family. I had nothing to fall back on. My mom was living below the level of poverty at that time. And when I think about that, had I not gotten fired, a lot of the people I worked with are still there or still working in similar capacity, right? I employ 300 people today. I've written a best-selling book. I've traveled the world. I have lived a life beyond 10 lifetimes of my wildest dreams. And guys, I'm just getting warmed up. I'm just getting warmed up. Now, I'm 51 years old, so I'm probably, 20, 30 years older than most of you guys. But the point is this, if we can take away anything from tonight, the point is this. If a fucking moron like me that was born to lose with no education, with a convicted felon, thing on my record, without the ability to type, I missed out on all the computer shit, so I couldn't navigate any of that stuff. It was one of the reasons why I got fired from that job. But if a fucking moron like me, and I wouldn't do the paperwork because I felt like I worked harder than everyone else, and I did. If a fucking moron like me can do what I said I did, then what can you do? And what can you do? And what can you do? And what will you do? And what will you do? And what will you do? And it's as simple as this. If you will please, and I am begging you, because I get people DMing me every single day asking me for advice. A lot of times I want to say, like, I wrote 2 fucking books explaining how I did everything. Why are you asking me for advice? But I'm just going to say this. Please, if you do nothing else, go home, take a pen or a pencil and piece of paper. Do not do it on your phone. Pen, paper. Put pen to paper. Sheet of paper, journal, whatever the fuck you want. Put pen to paper and do a 1-year, a 3-year, and a 5-year plan. If you're a little bit older, if you're in your 40s, do a 1-year, 3-year, and a 10-year plan. But if you're in your 20s and 30s, do a 1-year, 3-year, and a 5-year plan. And get as specific as possible. Because I got to tell you, I have empirical evidence and a shitload of experience. Weird shit happened. Weird, like, I was in the back of, like, Jack Osborne's girlfriend's new Volvo. A fucking Volvo, right? I was like 33, 34 years old, and I wrote down on my plan that my dream car was a Volvo. Why didn't I think higher? Why didn't I think, like, why did I write Ferrari or something? But I wrote down Volvo.
I think you need to get one.
I did. I drove them for 17 years.
Yeah.
I got a Range Rover now. I had a midlife crisis. So I wrote down, getting a Volvo. I wrote down writing a book. I wrote down opening up my own recovery center. I wrote down opening up my own juice bar. I wrote down the girl that I was going to date, even though it was impossible. And it took a long time to get her to date me. I used to picture us holding hands in that Volvo. Holding hands. I didn't have sexual fantasies about her. I wouldn't allow myself. I had a lot of sexual fantasies about a lot of girls. She was too special. She was too important. I would picture us holding hands while I drove that.
Give them a visual representation.
While I drove that Volvo, I wrote down a certain amount of money that I was going to have when I was rich. Again, probably should have wrote another zero behind that. But when you go from living under a bridge and driving a piece of shit car with 260,000 miles on it, I didn't allow myself to dream big enough. Now, luckily, when you get to all those goals, you get to do another one. I got to say this. You know that part in The Secret? You guys see The Secret? Okay. Very hokey. Great message. She stole it from As a Man Thinketh and Think and Grow Rich. And God bless her. I think she's amazing. She made $500 million doing that documentary on a shoestring budget. She was divorced. She got fucked over. She got cheated on. She became almost a billionaire from doing that. The one thing that I hated about The Secret is when the one dude talks about how he did the vision board and 5 years later he's unpacking because he just moved, and his little kid's unpacking the boxes, kind of driving him nuts. And the little kid takes out the box and he holds up the vision board, and the fucking dude freezes and he goes, "Oh my God," because the house that was on his vision board was the house that he was like. And I'm just like, why? Why lie? You're cool. You're rich. Why lie? Why would you make that story up? Because at 33 years old, when I first watched The Secret, I couldn't believe that we could co-create our own existence. I couldn't believe it. So I got the girl. We dated for 9 years. We built a couple businesses together. The relationship ended. I moved into an apartment. I'm pushing 50, and I'm thinking I'm never going to be able to afford a house, right? It was Malibu. The fucking tear down is $1 million. So I end up, just through an amazing set of circumstances, I end up buying one of the townhomes in the center that I was living in. I was living in number 11. I used to live in number 9, and I lucked out and got number 7. The people needed to sell immediately. I had some money. I invested some money, and it kind of went up real quick, and I had enough for a down payment. So I was able to get the townhome. And I think you know where I'm going with this, but I'm going to finish anyway. So all I had to do was go from 11 to 7, right? So it was just me and my assistant, Stephanie. And Stephanie's carrying over all the boxes or whatever. And we get to the thing, and she's like, "What do you want me to do with this?" I'm like, "I don't know, throw it out." "What do you want me to do with this?" "Put that up there." "What do you want me to do with this?" I'm like, I don't know. What? She goes, "What do you want me to do this?" And she holds up the vision board. Now, it wasn't the same house that I had cut out and put on that vision board, but it looked really fucking similar. Here's how shallow and pretentious I am and how fucking crazy I am. The toilet. The $5,000 Japanese toilet that washes your butt for you and dries your butt for you.
They're the best.
That was on my vision board. And guess what was in each bathroom that I had just remodeled?
Japanese toilet.
The watch.
Oh.
Guess what was on my wrist? The car. The Volvo. The SUV. Guess what was in my garage? So I'm not fucking around. I'm not trying to impress you. I got nothing to gain by telling you this. I'm telling you the truth. You're younger than me. You're smarter than me. You're taller than me. You're better looking than me. You got more skills than me. I guarantee you, whatever the fuck you want to do, you can do it.
Totally. What I'm hearing is that, you took this, there was this point in your life where you were probably sick and tired of just taking in life, taking it, getting hammered into the ground. It couldn't get any darker. How many times have you found rock bottom, And, you're probably not the only one in the room that's felt that way. And, moving forward and going pen to paper or however you do it, close your eyes and shut your mouth. You have to go inward. You have to start asking yourself instead of other people, because people can't give you these answers. You will never find what you're looking for through other people. You can start to go inward and think about how others are affecting you. You can start to ask yourself how you can be better with relationships. You can start to ask yourself what kind of role you can play in this world. And that's as simple as starting with pen and paper.
And what would have happened if I asked my dad? I don't talk to my dad now, but back then we used to talk a little bit. What would have happened if I asked my dad if I should quit that job? He would have flipped the fuck out, screamed at me, told me, "You're a goddamn idiot, don't you dare." What would have happened if I would have asked my mom if I should quit that job? She would have flipped out. She would have told me not to quit that job.
Asking other people, yeah.
Probably most people. Interestingly enough, there's a guy in the room tonight who's visiting from LA who was a client at that facility that I was working in. He's standing up against the wall. I don't want to embarrass him or point him out, but he's wearing glasses. He came up to me. I was so proud of myself. I was so happy I had a real job. I was so happy I was able to weasel my way in there regardless of my record and my lack of skills. I was so proud of myself, and I'd been working there for about 8 months. And we're having breakfast one morning, and he goes, "God, man, you got something. You ever thought about going into sales?" And I'm like, "No, I'm cool." And he's like, "All right, well, do you mind if I ask you how much you're making?" Which I found really offensive, right? But I very proudly said, "I'm making $14 an hour." And he said, Dale, he said, "I don't want to hurt your feelings, but how do you pay rent?" I'm like, "Well, I stay at my sponsor's house." He goes, "Well, how do you eat? How do you function on $14 an hour?" I'm like, "Well, I don't pay them rent. I wash their cars and I walk their dogs." He goes, "Dude, you're 34 years old. You got to aim a little higher." And it burned my fucking skin. It hurt me so bad when he said it. But he saw the potential in me. I didn't see the potential in me. I'm sure my parents didn't see the potential in me. My bosses and my coworkers didn't see the potential in me. But as we like to say in 12-step programs, self can't reveal self to self, but a stranger can see you. And a stranger saw me, and a stranger said, "You got to aim a little higher. You need to work for yourself. You need to go do your own thing." I fucking hated him for saying that. And it's 16 years later. It's 16 years later. And he came out to visit. He's got some work out here. He's in sales. And I have spoiled the shit out of him for the last 3 days, and we have eaten like kings, and we have had so much fun, and it's so cool to set those goals and to go where you want to go. So, yeah, I just want to encourage anybody and everybody that if you have dreams, don't listen to your parents. Don't listen to anybody. Like you said, you got to start asking yourself, because here's the deal. You hear it all the time. You hear like boyfriends especially, not so much girlfriends, but boyfriends especially will try to put their girls in their place, so to speak, and shoot them down and tell them they're not being realistic. What if I was being realistic? What if I said to you, a 40, how old was I? Came out 6 years ago. I'm 51. I can't do math. 44? 45?
Yeah.
45, 46 years old. What if I said to you that a 46-year-old man who cannot type and cannot spell, and this is not feigned humility, this is real. Like, if anyone that works for me is here tonight, they'll tell you, I cannot spell and I cannot type. But what if I said, yeah, this 46-year-old dude that can't spell, can't type, is going to write a book, and it's going to become a bestseller, and it's going to be in all these different languages, and it's going to be on Audible, and it's going to help a ton of people, and blah, 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 blah. Bullshit. It's not realistic. Well, fuck realistic. Fuck realistic. And fuck what your parents thought. I'm not saying your parents are probably amazing. Mine weren't. But your parents want you to play it safe. Your parents want you to play it safe. Playing it safe doesn't get you the life beyond your wildest dreams.
Totally. I love it. getting people's input on what you want to do, I mean, that takes a lot of conversations for someone that's will listen to you and truly try to understand what you want to do. They're still only receiving so much, and they're only applying their own perspectives. They're only applying their own experiences, so it doesn't quite translate. Through that experience, we may find people that are open to it and they support it, but we shouldn't listen verbatim for what people think about what we want to do. This world is expanding. The potential here, the innovation, technology, everything is expanding so fast that what we know is old news. All right, we always have to be looking forward. There's always a line to push there, and you know, I see examples of that and people doing that every day. This is Austin, Texas. This is one of the most innovative and fun and happening places to be in the entire world. And I went around the entire world to come back home. I think that, you know, what's happening right now in Austin, Texas, the way that life has opened back up, and how much awareness that people have in this moment is truly going to shape our culture and humanity on a global level, because we've got a lot of people with individual experiences, some of them painful, but we're not afraid to express ourselves. We're not afraid to be creative, and we're not afraid to work together. All right, but working together doesn't mean that we're not afraid to get one upped. We're not afraid to outshine, because all of these are just, those are things that we're going to go through, right? But if we can observe that, be aware of it, and ask ourselves if the way that we're carrying ourselves is serving our community, serving our friends, serving our family in the best capacity, then we move forward. That is how we keep progressing. And it's happening right now.
Yeah.
Because people have that awareness. Because people are tired of surface level shit. People are out living their lives. They're looking each other in the eye. They're beginning to listen. And we're just at the beginning. And I've said this and I'll keep saying it, that human beings have a tendency to forget. So it's our job to keep reminding each other every day. And it doesn't have to be this negative message or heavy. We can just look each other in the eye and listen, and we'll all inspire each other and gain a greater awareness of how we should carry ourselves, because we're seeing constant action, we're seeing growth happening, and there's nothing more inspiring in the world.
Yeah, and
that.
I want to piggyback on that. I want to say, guys, you probably don't know it if you've been here for a long time or if you're from here. There is something so magical and so powerful going on in Austin, Texas. This place over the next 20 years will be known as the epicenter of the New Thought movement. This place is going to change the world. This place is going to change the world. And it's going to have a lot to do with women and women taking over and cleaning up the mess that us men have made. Women are going to get back in touch with their power to the point where they don't have to fight to be equal. Women are never equal to a man. Women are superior to men. Women are the gods walking this realm. Women are the gods. We ain't the gods. You guys are procreating within yourselves. You are creating life within yourselves. There's nothing we can do to compete with that. I mean, we write songs and we build buildings and we make smoothies, buy tennis shoes that are too expensive to impress you, but we're never going to be able to compete with you. And when women stop trying to be equal and recognize that they're superior, we will step in line. We're great at taking direction from powerful women, but you got to own your fucking power. You got to own it. And you got to hold us accountable. And what's going to happen with the men are going to get back in touch with their power, with their real power, with their real strength. And that's what's happening with me right now with this group that I'm hanging out with. that are dragging me to these workouts and pushing me through these physical exertions like I've never in a million years experienced before. I've never worked out like I've been working out lately. And it's a bunch of men, a bunch of sweaty, shirtless dudes sweating all over me and hugging on me. And I'm like, my God, for obvious reasons, I don't want to be around men, right? I definitely don't want men touching me. I definitely don't want men sweating on me. And the more I go, the more I love it. The more I go, the more color disappears. And the more there's just a love that permeates the room. And it stops being about, well, I'm masculine and I'm straight and I can't do this and I can't do that. That's all bullshit. That's the old paradigm. That's the old paradigm. So Austin, Texas is going to usher in a new age. It's going to usher in a new age, and there's going to be magical, monumental change. And I used to find myself 5 years ago thinking about all these people. I would listen to their podcasts, and I'd be jealous, and I'd be like, yeah, you write a book and you tell people you only have to work 4 hours a week and then you're going to be a millionaire. Or all you have to do is drink butter and oil and you're going to be Superman. And they made millions of dollars and they were in the right place at the right time in Silicon Valley. And they got to do these angel investments and they all got to be, fabulously wealthy. It's going to happen here.
I love it.
It's going to happen here.
Yeah. I think the 4-hour work week and the butter coffee, I want to touch on that.
Whoopsie.
These things seem simple, right? But I think what we're touching on is that these are outside of ourselves. These simple things that are going to make ourselves better, that are going to solve our problems. We're still looking outside of ourselves for the answer, right? It's got to go. We have to go inward, right? Butter coffee will not get you jacked. It will not help you lose weight other than just jacking your metabolism. But until you gain that awareness of what is going on, that internally, how your energy is shifting, and you gain that awareness, that is where the creation starts. It's just awareness. So we all have that power. That is our superpower. But we have to go inward. If we all do that, just the people in this room, we'll change the fucking world. And that's just us. But every one of us has the potential to step out that door tonight or crawl after a fucking party. And we can start tomorrow, a little later, like 11 a.m. But we're all here tonight, and I want to give you yourselves a round of applause for showing up. Because there are already so many creators in this room. I know a lot of you already. I don't know a lot of you, which is amazing. It shows that this is expanding. And I can't wait to individually shake every single one of your hands and hear about what you're doing and see how we can help each other. Because that's what Austin, Texas is about. Now, we all don't have that capacity. It's not all going to come to fruition. But it's that intention, that willingness to truly shake another person's hand, hear about what they're doing, not apply your own experiences, not get your own interpretation of what they're doing or what they mean, but just to listen, just to be, just to receive. That is where change occurs.
Yeah. And listen, and as happy as I am where I am and how I get to live and what I get to do, if you look around this room and you read up a little bit on the incredible woman who created this brand, who is the brother or who is the sister of an incredible man who created another brand. And, I know for myself, so I'm only going to speak for myself. I always want to believe, they had rich parents, or, they just got lucky and they came up this thing and this happened. If you look at their story, I'm talking about Paige, and I can't remember what her brother's name is, but Blake, if you look at their story, if you look at what they went through, first of all, they were on Amazing Race. Does anybody know that? Did anybody know that? They were on Amazing Race. I didn't know that. I read about that. And then I read about how they tried to pool their resources and build this amazing company afterwards. And it was an abysmal failure. It didn't work. They lost all their money. So they worked hard and they worked hard and they worked hard. And now we sit here. This is a really dope spot. This is a really magical place. The colors are vibrant. It's like waking up my chakras. And so there's lots of stories out there about people that have done amazing things, but please don't do what I always wanted to do and believe that it was, well, he just got lucky because he came from money, or she just got lucky because she married, you know, the right guy or whatever. There is a lot of that. I mean, I lived in Malibu for 29 years. I I existed among those people who became who they became solely because of nepotism or solely because of generational wealth. And it ate me alive. And my jealousy ate me alive. And for many, many years, because look, the part I'm leaving out, which if you read my book, you'll read about it, and it's not something I really like to brag about, but the charity that put me into treatment, which is called Musicians Assistance Program, or in my case, Failed Musicians Assistance Program, I went to California like every other idiot to be famous. Because I was going to get rich and famous, and I was going to punish all those people that didn't believe in me, and then I was going to prove my parents wrong, and I was going to get back at that one girl that said that about me, or that one guy that said that about me. I was one of those people. And I don't know how many of you have experience with Los Angeles, Malibu, whatever. It's all the same thing, Calabasas. Most people out there were like me. So it's a very weird place to exist, where there's the haves and there's the have-nots. And many of the haves are haves because they hit the genetic lottery, right? Or they just were in the right place at the right time. But most of the haves, it's through nepotism and through generational wealth. And it'll eat you alive if that's what your goal is. If your goal is to become rich and famous, take it from me, you're fucked. And the worst thing that could happen is if you become rich and famous. One of the lowest moments of my life, aside from 2003 when I bottomed out and I stopped digging and I joined the winning team and I surrendered. One of the lowest moments in my life is when I sold a small piece of a company that I had started, and I got my first big giant check. And I mean fucking giant. And I had just ended a relationship. I ended the relationship of 9 years with that amazing girl that was on my vision board. After 9 years, the intimacy was gone. After 9 years, we were just roommates. We had sacrificed everything to build a business, and we succeeded. And we lost parts of our soul, and we lost our relationship in the process. So I ended that relationship. I sold a piece of the company. I had more money than I ever in a million years thought I would have. And I remember looking at that check, and I remember taking a picture of it. And there was one person in the world that I could text the picture to. It was a friend of mine who was very, very successful. And he freaked out. He's like, oh my God, I'm so proud of you. This is so amazing. It's so amazing. It's so amazing. And I was scared to deposit it because I didn't want to let it go. It seemed like it should have been some sort of a life raft or some sort of place where I arrived. And now I'm breathing this rarefied air. I no longer have any problems. I mean, it was fuck you money. It was fuck you money. And I deposited it. And slowly over the next couple of weeks, one of the worst depressions I've ever felt set in. And speaking of butter coffee, it was about 5 weeks later, and it began to become like a black hole. And I couldn't understand why. I'm like, wait, I'm single, I'm sober, I'm successful, and I'm fucking rich. I should be happy, right? And I was going to the Bulletproof conference. We were taking Wim Hof to go meet Dave. And I was...
Anybody know those names?
Wim Hof's a breather guy, a breath work guy. Or you're being facetious? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Not because of me. I was with Rick Rubin, who's cool. I make smoothies. And we were going to get lunch, and Rick doesn't say much. He never says much. He's just got these cold, gray eyes, and he stares right into your soul. And he says a few words, and then he leaves you just like wreathing or writhing, whatever the word is, on the ground. We're walking across the street, and I'm like, Rick, I got to tell you something. And he's like, looks at me, and I'm like, I'm really fucking depressed, man. Like, I'm really depressed. Like, I feel like I'm falling into this black hole, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like talking like a million miles a minute. And he looks at me, and he goes, well, you just sold a piece of your company, right? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, you learned what most people will never have the opportunity to learn. I'm like, what? And he said, success doesn't equal happiness. And he walked away. And just fucking floored me. Success doesn't equal happiness. Does that even make sense? I mean, it does make sense years later. But, like, what was I going to do? Talk about going inward. All of a sudden, I had to come to terms with the watch, the car, the house, the new girl at some point, the new business, whatever it was, the IRA, Roth, whatever the fuck those things are, all that stuff, like, it was never going to bring happiness. So if success doesn't bring happiness and money doesn't bring happiness, and not fame, but like, you know, got the fucking blue check mark after like begging people for months on end, I started winning at Instagram. Fuck. You start winning at Instagram, you start losing at life. I promise you. So yeah, I had to learn to dig deep. And let me completely fucking digress or just go in another direction. A year ago, I was losing my mom. My mom was dying. A huge part of my identity was going back to Ohio and taking care of my mom. I got to be the hero. I went back to Ohio, bought my mom a house, sent her back to Poland, spoiled the shit out of her, bought her jewelry, did all those things I always fantasized about doing when I was a little kid. And I did them. And I developed a big part of me through those actions. My mom got dementia and Alzheimer's. And all that shit went out the window. And my mom was dying. And a small handful of people began to attack me online because I started winning at Instagram. Started posting a bunch of stupid fucking pretentious pictures, fake shit, you know? I wasn't the girl that was sponsored by the old guy that paid for all of her trips to Cabo, but I was just as bad. I was posting a bunch of shit I shouldn't have been posting. I was getting attacked. COVID happened, and my mom was dying. And I thought, fuck it. I'm going to sell part of my company. I'm going to sell my townhome. I'm going to move to South Beach. And I'm just going to be basically retired. And I told my girlfriend, and she's like, I don't want to retire. I want to work. I'm like, all right, well, we'll figure something out. So we sold the place. We went down to South Beach. But the universe, God, source, had different plans. The person who was running our South Congress location quit abruptly, and the store was failing abysmally. It was losing about $25,000 a month. And it wasn't my money. That's the only store that I own with an investor. So we had to leave South Beach, and we had to come to Austin. And on the way here, my girlfriend, being very wise beyond her years and just a woman, said, well, maybe we'll live in Austin. And internally, I was like, the fuck we will. I am not living in the state that gave me my felony. In 1995, when I walked out of that courtroom for the last time, I said, and I'll quote, I will never step foot in this fucking godforsaken state again. Well,
here we are.
Here we are. So we came here as triage to take care of that store, and it immediately started getting better. And then she brought it up again. Maybe we should live here. The weather was shit. It was November. It was getting cold. It was weird. I kept looking down at my shirt because I was walking along the river that you guys call a lake. And people kept smiling. And I kept looking down because I thought like I spilled something. And I'm like, what the fuck are these people looking at? 29 years in LA will do that to you. Winning at Instagram will do that to you. People were smiling at me because people are good people. They're good people. And obviously, long story endless, I wound up here, right? We bought a house. We built a house off Lamar, about a mile and a half from here. Super happy. I'm loving it. But 3 weeks ago, I was at a nursery. It was a Friday afternoon. I'm redoing the yard for the third time, tearing up all the fucking landscaping that the builder had put in. And I didn't want grass. Grass is weird. I don't want to water grass. And I don't want to put chemicals in the ground. So I put in the decomposed granite. And I raced to this wholesale nursery that's like 22 miles from here. and this will sum up my whole experience with Austin. I race there as fast as I can. It's a Friday afternoon. And as I pull up in my Range Rover Sport and I jump out of my car with my fancy tennis shoes on, I look at the pickup trucks parked there. And I realize, dude, you're not in LA. You're not going to go in there and fucking bark at some people and have them deliver your shit like that. You're fucked. Because last time I was there, they were like, yeah, we might be able to bring those out there to you next week sometime. So I was already there. I already drove the 35 minutes there. So I get out and I go to the office, and there's the same girl with the overalls on, and one of the overalls is like hanging off her shoulder. And I come up all frenetic and crazy, and I'm like, I'm going to ask you a really stupid question, and I know the answer is going to be no, and it's totally okay, but I have to ask it anyway, and then I'm going to get back in my car and leave. And she's like, okay. I'm like, if I pick out some plants right now, can you guys deliver them to my house? I've got some gardeners there, and they're going to plant them for me. And she laughs, and rightfully so. And then some girl behind her that was sitting on the stoop, shaved head, tatted up, pierced up, she goes, where are the plants going? And I'm like, Zilker. And she goes, I'm heading that way. I can take them. I'm like, oh my God, amazing. You're a delivery service? She goes, no, I'm heading in that direction. I can take them. I go get your plants and I'll wait for you. I walk away and I'm like, fuck. So, and I want big plants, you know? I want to look at cool shit. I want to feel like I've arrived. And I go and I get all these big plants. I go back over and they're loading them into her pickup truck. And she's like, yeah, I'll follow you over. And so we drive back, takes about a half hour. And I pull into my driveway, pull in front of the house. She pulls into the driveway, backs into the driveway. And the gardeners are gone. I'm like, now what? She jumps out, jumps into the back of the pickup truck, and just starts pulling them off the pickup truck. I'm like, whoa, hang on. I can call them. I can text them. And she's like, I think we can get it. I'm like, okay. And so she pulls them off. She sets them on the ground. And then she starts to walk away like she's going to leave. And I'm like, wait, what do I owe you? She's like, you don't owe me anything. And I'm like, no, I got to pay you. And she's like, no, you don't. I'm like, can I give you gas money? And she's like, if you insist. So I pulled out $100. And I go to hand it to her. She goes, that's not gas money. That's too much. And I'm like, every day I have somebody call me and say, don't you miss the ocean? And every day when I say no, you're why I don't miss the ocean. That's Austin in a nutshell.
Man, I love that story. And I love how good your Texas accent is. Dude, nailed it.
What about my California? Don't you miss the ocean?
Yeah, nailed that too.
The up talk.
But I didn't want to hear it again.
Neither do I.
Guys, I think that is a perfect summary of what we're going for here. That's the impression that I want all of us to walk out of this room tonight with, is to treat people with kindness, lead with your heart, and believe that's enough in this world. You don't have to flex. You don't have to show anybody else what you're worth. If they truly care, if they're truly open to knowing who you are, then they'll be there for you. So we can all do that for each other. The final portion of this episode, and I don't think that I need to sum this episode up. It was an experience in itself, and I think I'll just go back and re-listen to it time and time again, because there were so many beautiful gems in that story.
Thank you, brother.
And we all have those in us. So I want to challenge you to tell your story in whatever capacity, whether it's through a canvas, whether it's through a brand, whatever your passion is, do it. At this time, I would like to open it up for a Q&A. We have a third microphone, and just because you're in the back doesn't mean that you can't ask a question. All right? So we got one right up front.
This was awesome, by the way. I love being here. This is cool. Question for you. So when you started Sunlife Organics, did you bring in an investor originally, or was it just like kind of shoestring budget type thing, or just kind of an idea that you developed and then you like brought someone in and you're like, hey, this is what I got, and they looked at it and they're like, that's cool? Or was someone kind of there like originally, just kind of, you know, in the start of it? Just curious how that ended up.
Thank you for the question. I want to invite you to Sunlife Organics, and we'll exchange numbers or DM or whatever you guys do these days. I'm going to give you my second book, which is not a bestseller, and it's going to explain everything, how I went from getting $40 a week from Musicians Assistance Program. Musicians Assistance Program is a tongue twister, or failed Musicians Assistance Program, is now called Music Cares, but they used to give us $40 a week to live on, and I did just fine. I got my cigarettes that I rolled and got my pasta from Smart and Final and got a big thing of Prego. We all pooled our resources and got the instant coffee, and we did okay. And in the beginning, it was lots of odd jobs. It was walking dogs and washing cars and working at rehabs. Eventually, I got 2 jobs at 2 different rehabs. But to answer your question more specifically, so I started Sunlife when I was 41 years old. I had $55,000 to my name, which I thought it would take about $75,000 to open. So I was asking a lot of people if they would be willing to invest. And a lot of people in the beginning, like with most situations, were like, oh yeah, I'll give you money, I'll give you money, I'll give you money. When push came to shove, nobody wanted to give me money. And there was one guy that saw how hard I worked, and I had helped him with another situation. And he said, why are you always talking about opening this fucking juice bar? Why don't you just do it? As we're sitting in his convertible Bentley or Rolls Royce, whatever it was. And I said, because I don't have that kind of money. I'm finding out the more I investigate it, they want first, last, and security deposit. They want 6 months of rent, in a prudent reserve. Then the lawyer's going to cost $10,000 to negotiate the lease, and then I got to get all these licenses. It really was a very disenchanting experience to have a dream that was a good intention dream that just seemed so fucking impossible, and it was never going to happen. The recession hit. Vacancies were everywhere. Landlords became desperate, and that dude who, I'm just going to say this. He's not the type of guy you would not want to pay back, so to speak. He wasn't a banker. He said, that's a hand of poker to me. I'll give you a check for $200,000. Give me 33%. And I said, great. And I took his $33,000 plus my $55,000, and we started construction. And 10 months later, we ran out of money. We had no shelves. We had no table. We had barely any inventory. And we had no choice but to open because the lease was signed and the business was in motion. He very quickly became disenchanted with the business and got very upset that I wasn't adding more frozen yogurt machines. And I'm like, we're not a frozen yogurt shop. And he's like, well, it's the best fucking frozen yogurt I ever fucking had. You should get more frozen yogurt machines. And I'm like, I don't have any money. And he's like, I'll give you more money and you'll give me more of the business. And I could see where that was going. I was going to end up working for this dude. And I just put my foot down and I drew some boundaries, as scary as it was. And I said, no, I'm not doing it. And he's like, then give me my fucking money back. So I had to go to 3 different people, including my father, who I've never had a relationship with before. And I had to borrow money and I had to pay him back. I've run the business for 10 years along with my ex-partner, and we've never taken a K1 distribution to this day. This will be the first year that we're going to take profits. This is the first year. So I didn't have the money to do it. I started on a shoestring and a prayer. What I will tell you, and you'll read it in the book if I give it to you, I hope I can, because we had good intentions and because my heart in that regard was pure, remember, I'm a fucking dude. I'm a guy. I'm shallow, surface level. I want shiny shit. Like, I want a hot girlfriend or like whatever. Like, I hope I'm not falsely representing myself like I'm some spiritual guy, because I'm not. I'm just a normal dude that crawled my way out of hell. But my idea to open a juice bar so when kids finished their softball games, they wouldn't go get frappuccinos with 23 teaspoons of sugar or high fructose corn syrup in it. Or, when they did something good, instead of their parents giving them a sucker or giving them candy or whatever, maybe they would come and give them a smoothie with protein in it and with collagen in it or whatever. So my intentions were good. And by the grace of God, the business began to sustain itself. We were able to pay the guy back, and just always on a shoestring and a prayer. Always. We made it this far, and we're going to go a lot further.
I love it. Let's go.
I think we got
Questions.
One dude in the back.
Questions. What's up? Just make sure you use it.
First of all, thank you for sharing your story, and welcome to the greatest city in the country.
Yes. Amen.
World.
Amen.
World, even, yeah. It sounded like you had a really late start in life. So what is your sense of urgency now in life? Do you feel like you missed out on stuff? Do you feel like you have to make up for stuff now? And then also, you talked about how success doesn't equal happiness.
Mm-hmm.
So what is happiness to you?
Wish I would have thought of that. Nice question.
So, I'm resonating with the second part of the question. I'll go back to the first part of the question. Success to me is peace of mind, a relationship with my creator, our creator, feeling that I'm at least aiming in the right direction of becoming the man that God intended me to be. Now, obviously, I fall short of the mark every single day, right? I'm going to stumble all the time. I'm going to get angry about something, or I'm going to become jealous, or I'm going to become lustful, or I'm going to become gluttonous. I go through all those different things all the time. But I have a sense now for the first time in my life that I'm at least walking in the right direction. I don't feel so much like a piece of shit. The depression and the anxiety still comes from time to time, mostly in the mornings. But success is being a part of the community that I'm blessed to live in and giving back, employing people, helping people to become healthy and happy, and inspiring people. I think the most successful I feel is when I get the DMs in different languages that they don't know, because like it's what, let's say it's Russian or let's say it's Spanish or whatever. They don't know that I don't speak those languages. How could they know? They see my book and it's in their language, so they assume that I speak Bulgarian or whatever. And I'll get these really long messages, and whenever it's a really long one, it's heartfelt. Whenever it's a really short one, they want money, or they want you to buy them a house or bring them to the country and give them a job or whatever. But I always say I don't understand, I don't speak whatever language this is, because sometimes I literally don't even know what language it is. And then they'll use Google Translate, and in a very cryptic manner, I'm able to piece together what it is they're saying to me. And it's usually one of the most beautiful, profound messages I've ever heard about how I help them, or I help their brother, I help their sister, or they took my book to their brother-in-law who's in prison, or whatever it is. Sometimes it's just like a fourth grade teacher in Minneapolis that's struggling with her weight, who feels like if I was brave enough to share what happened to me as a child, she's now brave enough to share that with her therapist for the first time. So those are the moments when I feel most successful, is when I feel like I'm a part of something and I feel like I'm giving back. I love treating people. I kind of forgot, and then when you brought it up, I remembered. I treat people every day. I love treating people. My CFO gets really upset with me, and it's twofold. It's twofold. Number one, I like to treat people because I'm really insecure and I want people to like me. Okay? I find it hilarious. It doesn't happen so much here, but like in Malibu, like when some famous movie star or whatever would come in and I would treat them, and they would say, "Oh my God, you're so sweet." I'd be like, "No, I'm not. This does not make me sweet or generous. I'm just being a guy." But even if it's a janitor, even if it's a day laborer, even if it's a housekeeper, it doesn't matter to me. And especially in those moments, I love to share, number one, because I'm insecure and I want people to like me. But number two, because I learned from my mom that you're supposed to give to other people. You're supposed to share. And it feels amazing. And I know some of you guys, I know what that feels like, to treat people and to take care of people. I do it every day. I probably do it too much. Maybe that's why we're losing so much money there, but I don't know. I don't care. It's going to get busy. The new gym's going to open up around the corner. The Soho House Hotel is going to open up. There's a bunch of stuff that's coming that store is going to be real busy. Right now it's losing money and it's okay. It's not going to stop me from being generous with people, because that's part of success too. Do I feel a sense of urgency? Yeah, I wasted a lot of time. I was a taker for 33 years, and even into my sobriety, I was a taker. I was a cheater. I was a rageaholic. Somewhat violent, but mostly, with men. With women, when push came to shove, I wasn't violent like my dad violent, but sometimes the timbre in your voice can be just as violent and just as damaging. And I'm embarrassed by the way I used to act, and I'm embarrassed by the way I used to treat my girlfriends. And I've done my best to make amends to all of them, but at the end of the day, saying you're sorry, sometimes that don't cut it. Sometimes that don't cut it. So I can't change it. I can't go back and I can't change it. But what I can do now is not be a cheater. What can I do now is not raise my voice to my girlfriend, right? Well, first of all, she's like a foot taller than me. She probably beat me up, and she's bigger than me. But now I can be who I should have been back then.
I love it. Let's take one more. Let's make it a really good one.
No pressure.
I have one quick question.
Yes.
Part of your story, you talked about how you had a woman that was like the one.
Yeah.
But she was also like an alpha female where she just handled things. So at what point in your life where you're like, okay, I'm welcoming to this woman being that in my life? That's a tough question, right? Because we live, right? we live in a world, and I'm gonna just paint this picture for you.
Yeah.
I've been with my husband. We'll be married 10 years in October.
Yeah.
Together 16 years. He is truly an alpha male.
Yeah.
But he also lets me be me and be the alpha female that I need to be. But that is not a normal acceptance in a relationship. There's always that male-female relationship or male-female place, whereas we kind of share that partnership. So at what point in your life did you realize it's okay to let her run this? It's okay to let her do this for me. I don't have to be the man at this point.
That's a great question.
Sorry.
No, it's great. First of all, I got to tell you, so I got single at 46 years old and had never been successful and had never been sober, and really had this idea that I was going to go do all these things that guys think that if they get to do them, that it's going to bring a sense of happiness or a sense of satisfaction. And I don't want to be too graphic and too disrespectful because there's a lot of young women in the audience tonight, but let's just say I had the time and the resources and the ability to go do anything and everything I think many guys have dreamed about doing. And I tried multiple times. And it was fucking disgusting. It was empty. I had a friend with a lot of money who spoiled me with a certain situation, which one would think would be the all-time fantasy of any guy. It's not, by the way. There's a lot of amazing guys out there that don't fantasize about shit like that. But I did. I was in a 9-year-long relationship where I was faithful. I had some fucking fantasies. I had some ideas about what was going to fulfill me. It didn't. In fact, it made me feel shame. It made me feel gross. It made me feel dirty. It kicked up some old feelings from a long time ago. And I made a pact with myself that I was done with relationships. I'm just going to be single and I'm not going to search for the one because there isn't the one out there. I need to work on myself, and I did, and I had to get into the breath work and the meditation and stop buying shit and invest more and, you know, create some stability in my life and find true security and meaning.
I feel attacked.
And this girl came into my life, and we immediately became friends. And for the first time in my life, I shared every deep, dark, dirty secret with her. We were never going to date, so what fucking difference does it make? You know, there was this, growing up, there was this idea that you never want to show, this is a Wizard of Oz reference, so you're probably not going to get this, but you're never supposed to show the girl the man behind the curtain. Okay. That was my core belief. Well, she wasn't going to be my girl for very blatant reasons. There was a big age difference, and it just wasn't, it wasn't going to happen. I immediately showed her the man behind the curtain. Here's who I am. I'm a piece of shit in this area, and I'm a pretty decent guy in this area, and this is what I've done, and this is what I'm going to go do. So she was friends with me while I went off on those journeys trying to experience these experiences, and I would come back and I would share with her how fucking gross it was. So all my dirt, all my shit, she already knew about. And then like 6 months in, we're in a movie, and she's like leaning in, and I'm like, what the fuck? So I like lean in, and then she leans in a little bit more, and I'm like, my heart's like racing. And we walk out of the movie. The movie was Sicario, the first Sicario. Brilliant movie. And as we're walking out, it's a warm, balmy summer evening. We're in Agora. We're at Agora 8 movie theater, and we're walking out in the parking lot. And I was like, you feel that? And she's like, what? And I'm like, you feel that, you know, that there's something going on here. And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you feel like you like me. She's like, what? And my face started getting red, and I'm like, oh my God, what the fuck am I, why did I say that? Why did I say that? Why did I say that? And she like walked away, got into her truck, she drove a pickup truck, and she slammed the door, but she slammed it extra hard, which was a tell in hindsight. And she left, and I went home. And you know when people say I didn't sleep all night last night? I did not sleep that night. I tossed and I turned all night, and I felt such a sickness. I felt a soul sickness because, again, in hindsight, I was fucking in love. I was in love, but it was never going to happen. We were never going to date. And 7:20 a.m. the next morning, my text goes off, and I look at it. What are you up to? I'm like, what? I'm like, what do you mean, what am I up to? You obviously like me. She goes, maybe. And that was the beginning. And for the better part of a year, I would sit her down and say, no sleepovers. You're not my girlfriend. This is not happening. I'm not playing fucking house ever again. This is not going to happen. She is my goddess. I worship her. I kiss her feet, literally and metaphorically. She has taken over my life. She doesn't even talk, and I fucking do whatever dance she's telling me to do. She is stoic and brave and grounded and tall and beautiful. She's literally the opposite of me. She never talks. I never shut the fuck up. She doesn't own makeup. She's not on social media. She's literally the opposite of me, and I worship her. I absolutely worship her. I would love to. So I hope that answered your question. We've been together for 5.5 years now. She somehow even like helps run the company. She even took that away from me. I'm joking. She didn't take anything away from me. She gave to me. She could see how stressed out I was, and there was a sense of urgency to build some grand empire because I felt like that was my duty, to take this all across the country and all across the world. She stepped in at a certain point without saying much, was like, us girls got it. Why don't you fucking relax? Go do some yoga. So the entire company today is run 90% by women on a corporate level. On a management level, 80% of our managers are women. And as an employee level, 90% of our employees are women. So it's a girl power brand. I am a huge fan of it. I have nothing to do with it. If you go there and you love it, I have nothing to do with it. I had a good idea, right? But what makes it amazing are the people that run it, the people that work there, and the people that are customers there. I am just a fucking fan. And by the way, it couldn't be more of a divine feminine energy brand. Our symbol is a pink lotus. It's literally Lakshmi's symbol. Lakshmi is my goddess in Vedic astrology. So I am just the lucky recipient of divine feminine energy channeling through me and bringing forth these amazing smoothies, acai bowls, and everything else to the planet. God has a sense of humor to take a fucking moron like me and make him super successful with a big mouth. I hope you're inspired.
Let's give it up for Khalil Rafati.
Thank you.
Man, it was an absolute blast to talk to you tonight. This whole experience, thank you for everyone for coming out. Thank you to Aviator Nation for welcoming us and allowing us to do this. Thank you to our friends and the artists that joined us on stage tonight. We saw these pieces come together. I love each and every one of you. Give me a thumbs up if your piece is for sale today. Yep. All right. Beautiful. Talk to these artists if you like these pieces. If you want to take one home, we can work something out. I would like to thank my sponsors, Sleek Form, Community Austin, The Dogwood, and Alive and Well. All right? But let's give it up one more time, y'all.
Thank you, brother.
Signing off. Out.
Thank you.